idea of debt. So investing with debt is also a very bad decision unless you're like 10 or 15 years in the game, and you have the proper allocation. And a lot of times people will borrow money and still have the cash to cover. So a really good company to talk about that is Apple. Apple has millions of dollars of debt, but they have the cash reserves behind to pay that debt off. So I think a lot of people think like, oh, well, I'm going to get loans out and these loans are going to be great for me. Well, it could work for you like that, but realistically, it's probably not going to. Now, let's say you have $100,000 on the side and then you grab a $100,000 loan at 3%. And inflation's at 7%, you're still going to be making money, but you have the $100K to pay off that loan if you need to. So it's a very touchy subject, and it's also different. It's a different variance for every person. So somebody like me, I don't have kids, not yet at least. I don't have a lot of overhead, so I don't need to marginalize a lot of my life right now. I can pretty much afford a lot of it cash up front. But when you're looking at an investment stance on debt, I think that a financial advisor is always somebody great to talk to. Like, getting a financial advisor is very taboo for a lot of people because they are truly, they make money off when you profit. But they're not going to care about your money like you care about your money. So there's the financial advisor, and then there's learning the ins and outs of being your own financial advisor. I think money is really important when it comes to our lives because it can't buy happiness, it doesn't buy health, but it buys health insurance. So money is one of those things that constantly is revolving through our minds, not necessarily because we have to we need it or want to go make it right away, but it's going to make our life more convenient. So with a debt allocation talk, like the riskiest so money is debt. Like, what is debt? Debt is literally a piece of paper. It's the government notes that are printed, and more of them are printed every year because the government overspends their budget. Then they have to print more debt. So you can live that same type of life, but there are many ins and outs about it. It's very tricky. I personally don't. I think having a good rule for me is if I have, besides a home, if you take the home away from it, let's just take the house out. If you have $50,000 in cash, it's okay to have $50,000 in debt as long as it's at a good interest rate. And good, it depends on the person. So I think that's a pretty smart plan. And a house is more of a store of value or a store of your wealth because the cash itself, like if I had $400,000 on the side, that $400,000 is going to lose. It's losing like around 1% a month to 2% a month. The dollar is getting devalued by 1% a month or more, 1 to 2. So every month, if that $400,000 would be losing 2%, at first it eats a lot away. So a home is one way that people use it to hedge an type of inflation bet. In general, I think that debt is a very slippery slope because this is one word of advice like I always try to live by. It's really easy to get in a lifetime of debt, but it takes a lifetime to get out of debt. And I came up with that myself. But I think it's very common for us to understand that. It's very easy to get into a lifetime of debt, and it takes a lifetime to get out of debt. But there is good debt, and the rich really, like rich people, when I say rich, I mean like these guys, like millions of dollars, not just like a couple $100,000 or like what we're trying to aspire to be. Like, these are rich people. They're really good at leverage. They really understand the basic fundamental macroeconomic strategy of leverage, and they know how to leverage their money. And the poor people, what they do is they take their money and they spend it, and they take their money and they're spending more than they're making, so that way they never have a chance to leverage anything. That's all stock market investing is. When you're investing in like a covered call ETF, or just let's say a regular ETF, if I have $1,000 in, I'm going to make around $100 a year in interest alone from that ETF. That's me leveraging my money. I'm lending out debt, and I'm incurring a good type of debt. And a credit card debt, when you go buy a fancy this or that, clothes, food, whatever, you go and spend that money, and then it's gone. And then you owe, if you spend it before you have it, then you now have to pay interest, and that's bad debt, like a high amount. So I think like educating yourselves on debt, including myself, learning how to educate myself. These video podcasts are mostly for me to look back on when I'm older and say, what was my mental clarity, or did I have any clairvoyance at all for what was going on at the time? That's pretty much it. A debt is a very it's a loaded term. It can be very good. It's very hard to use it correctly. It can also be very bad. But that's really one I wanted to brainstorm today and get off. Thanks.